Hello and welcome to Member 365 webinar on directories. I'm your host. My name is Christine Bundy. I'm the Customer Success Manager at Member 365. And just before we get into everything, I just want to go over a few items. So first of all, we are recording today's session. It will be posted on our website. You also will get a copy of it afterwards. So we will have everybody is muted and everybody video is off. So make sure that you have a notepad ready and or have your Member 365 account open so you can kind of follow along. So for today, what we're going to do is we're going to go over a couple definitions first. So I'm going to explain the different types of membership directories. Then we're going to go in and configure a directory, and I already have a few set up, so we're gonna go in and see what that looks like. Then we're gonna show you what it looks like in the member portal, and also how to embed it onto a website and also view on the website, so what the different views look like. Then we'll go into some best practices and then have some time for Q&A. So if you have questions at any time, please type them into the Q&A section. I love questions. It means you're thinking and learning, so all questions are good questions. Just jump them in there. All right, so first, let's go over a few definitions. So first off, what is a member directory? So this is a listing of that you've assigned to individuals to be visible in the directory. So it does not show the organization information. It's specific to what is on the contact record in the details area. So when they're filling in like their membership application, or if they've maybe joined through an event and you're creating an event directory for just the members, it's going to be the details on their contact record. The other type of directory you can make is an organization or group directory. And this is for only the organizations that you've assigned based off of the membership or contact demographic. So there's two ways to make people visible or organizations visible in a directory, and that's by using the membership category or a contact demographic. So you either have to assign one of those for them to be able to appear in the directory. And the organization directory, again, is just the organization information. So what is found on the organization record. You can show the primary information as well. So the first name and last name and email address of the primary on organization records, only if you want to. And again, I'm going to go through this a little bit more in detail when we get into the configuration options. Finally, before we dive in, one area I always like to cover is what is the difference between a membership form and a directory form. And this is something you really want to consider when you're actually setting up your membership categories and if you're starting to consider having a directory, because you don't want to ask questions twice. So the very first thing I always ask is the questions you're asking, do you want them to be available as filters or items that you want visible in your directory? If they are, you do not want to put them on your membership form. You want to put them on your directory form. If they are only for approval purposes, then you want those questions on the membership form. If all the questions you want available on the directory form, you can just create a directory form and we can attach it to the membership application. And I'm going to show you how to do that and why it's really important you do that. So there is two separate forms. There's just a membership form. So that is for strictly like approval processes and maybe some sensitive information that you don't ever want visible. The directory form are questions that you still might want to ask the members in the member application, but are going to be attached and visible in the directory. So there's two separate forms, and just kind of wanted to make sure we understand the difference. So from here, I actually want to jump in to Member 365, and we're going to show you how to configure the membership. So I'm in our webinar play site, and what I'm going to do is from the admin dashboard, I'm going to come up to modules, and I'm going to go to directory, and I'm going to click on manage. Now, if you don't have one, you can come in here and click on create, but I already have a couple existing for the purpose of this webinar, so I'm just going to go through those. So the first one that we're going to look at is the member directory. So this is the first one here. I'm going to click on the name, and the first thing you're going to do is your setup. So give it a name. So I just called it members. You can call it whatever you like. You cannot use the same name for different directories. Each directory needs to be a unique name. Just be careful about that. And then I'm going to determine which membership categories I want to appear and what classifications or demographics I'd want to appear in this directory. Now I've already selected the corporate, gold, individual, and institutional membership categories. So those are the individuals that I would like to appear in the specific directory. Next, you're going to say, where is this going to be displayed? You have two options. So if you're just testing things out and you don't really want anyone to be visible, like being able to visibly see it, you can just make this public and hide it on a page on your website. And I'll show you how to do that in a couple of minutes. And then whenever you're ready, you can come back in and enable it to appear in the member portal. It's as simple as coming in and just checking it on or off so that you can kind of test things out, make sure they're going to work for you the way you want, and then making them available to the members. Then finally, you have the ability to attach a directory form. Now, this video is assuming you've already created your form. I will show you a couple tricks in a few minutes of making things available in the directory as options. But I am just assuming that you've already made one, and you just simply come here and select the one that you want to attach. Then you have your format. So the two that we're focusing on in this video is the member and the organization directory. So again, do you want just the member details to be visible, or do you want it to be the organization? And for this one, we're doing members. Then we have appearance. So how and when do you want your members to appear? Do you want them always to appear? So like the second they join, when your membership category is selected, they automatically get added to the directory. Or you can have the ability for them to opt in. So they have to actually go into the member portal and toggle on the option for opting in to the directory and being able to appear there. So just something to keep in mind is to which you want. The standard one is to have them always appear. One thing I will note is that if they always appear, there is no option to remove them from it, but they can disable information from being visible, which we'll go over when we get to the field permissions. Next, we have a few items here of what you want to be able to do with it. So first off, is show on the application. So this one is actually really important, is a best practice. I always recommend that you have your directory form, so the one that you have attached up here, to appear on the membership application so that is actually filled out. Too often people don't enable this feature and they're wondering why people don't fill in the information, because they're not doing it during the application process, and then people forget or they get lazy. If it's not right there and apparent in front of them, they're 99% of the time not going to do it. So I always recommend you have it attached to the membership application. It's always the last page before payment. So it's always that last set of questions that they answer. And then those will automatically be there in the member portal for when they're done their application process. It also allows you to attach it to the renewals so that every year it gets updated as they're going through their annual renewals, and for lifetime member, the refreshers. Then you can also make it so that when you click on a contact name or an organization name, you can click on it and get more information. So all the responses from that form that you have, you can actually have it clickable to pop up so you can see all those items. So if you have like a description of the organization or a bio of the contact, that information can be available within the directory. Then finally, you can determine who can see the directory in the member portal. So you can make it so that only the individuals that are selected here, so if I turn both of these off, only corporate, gold, individual, and institutional members can see this directory. Nobody else can. So, but if I come down here and I say, show directory to all members, that means anybody with any membership can view this directory as an added value. You can also make it so that anybody with any of the contact demographics here can see it as another added value of maybe being associated with your organization. So there's abilities to say who can see the directory and who cannot. All right, so that's the setup. So that's the first page. Next, we're going to go into rules. So for rules, there's a few things in here I'm going to point out that are really important, but I'm just going to go through each of them. So the first one is, do you want lapsed members to show in your directory? 90% of the time, this is a no, because they're not active. So it's mainly just for active members. But again, it's up to your internal processes and procedures and how you want to do that. So you can show lapsed members if you want to allow that. If you have CE, you can determine if you want them, if they have not completed their CE, do you want them to appear, yes or no? One I do always like to turn on is if people are in their grace period. So if they haven't renewed and they're technically lapsed, but are still have time to renew, still give them that option to appear in the directory for maybe those last few days until they renew, or if they completely lapse, then they can get taken out. Then when do you want the members to show during inside the CE? So continuing education grace period. So CE is continuing education. So if they are still within that grace period and still maybe giving activities into the system to earn their certification, then you may want to allow that. So again, another option. I always like to enable the search functionalities within the directory. So I always like to turn this one on. It allows for simple searches. So definitely something to turn on as you're going. Another thing is allowing the search for the form responses. So another one I always like to turn on is allowing keyword searches for the form. So both of these I always like to turn on. It's up to you though. Again, your discretion, internal processes, if you want to do that. Then finally, we have this one. So this one actually does your directory builder combine all the categories. So some organizations like to allow the filter for different membership categories. This though allows it so that you don't actually see what membership category they're in. You only see that they are a member. So this is actually kind of really important if you have maybe an organization membership that you're on your public website. You don't really want to advertise what membership category they're in, but you just want to say that they're a member and they're being posted in your directory as an added value. So you might want to have this on for specific directories, like organization versus member. If you are doing a member directory, I recommend turning on the 2 grids, because right now, if you don't enable this, it's just a 1 grid. So 1 big box for each individual. This actually turns it into 2 small boxes side by side in a 2 kind of grid format. It just makes it a little bit cleaner for the member profile. The organization profile is only 1 box, but for the member only, I do like to turn this on. So I'm going to turn on for this one. And then lastly is display members in random order. This one's really important if you have a public website. And the reason is that you don't want everybody with the last name A to always be picked. So having it in random order allows new people each time to have equal view share. So just another great added value is you're not just having the A people with last names A first all the time. It's kind of sorting through everybody, so everybody gets equal face time. All right, next tab is the public directory. So there is a difference between the public directory and the member portal directory. So you could have different settings if you like. So I could, for example, say what the status is of a member in the member portal, but not on the public website. So these are exactly the same for both the member and public directory, portal or public directory. So, but it just depends on what you want your settings to be. So you can show the member status, yes or no. So green is yes, red is no. You can allow a downloaded copy, so people can actually export your directory. This may only apply to members. You want to be careful with this one because you don't want actually people to download your entire list. So just something to be careful about, but you can enable that feature. Do you want members to allow to choose what they want displayed? This one I always recommend putting on, especially if you're allowing email and things along those lines. Some people don't want their email visible, especially on the public view. So definitely something that you want to allow. Again, up to you. You can enable the ability for search by location. You can also do specification search if you want. It's not something that you absolutely need. I actually recommend not using it. It's very specific for a couple of our clients, so it's just something to just turn off. And then we have social media links. So I do always recommend this because if your members have it, it'll appear. If they don't, nothing appears. You don't have to worry about it. Then we have the default image. So I always recommend having a default image, even if it's just your company logo. It's just a placeholder until the individual adds their profile photo or the primary contact for an organization directory adds their logo, or you add the logo on the back end. So whether it's you're adding it in the CRM or the members adding it in the member portal, once it's added, it replaces the default image here. And then finally, you have kind of an overview message. So it just appears at the very top, and you can just have a little description about what the directory is and who's in it and what kind of added value there is. So as I mentioned, the same settings are in the portal view. So there's the portal directory and the public directory. So this one goes on the website. This one is just in the member portal. Then we have your portal, public access. So this is the code that we're actually going to use to embed into the website. And I'm going to show you how to do that in just a couple minutes. We're going to come back to this in just a couple minutes. But first, we're going to go to field permissions. And there's a couple of permissions in here that I really like to go over. So first off is, do you want to allow contact information to be shown in the directory? Yes or no? Yes, I do. You don't necessarily have to, but it's up to your discretion. And then what type of address would you like to use? Do you want to use the organization's, the business address, or do you want to use their residential address? This would depend on your organization. And like homeowner associations, you're going to want residential. Maybe even fraternities, you're going to want residential so people can see where you're located. Then for business, or especially if you're doing an organization directory, you're definitely going to want to have the business address there, or if you're doing a professional directory. Then you can determine what is visible. So there's 3 options for the public and the member portal. So first is member portal. So you can come through here and see these are the options that can be visible for the contact. So do you want citation, suffix, first name, last name, email address, title, photo, member number, category? Again, these 2 you might only want to have on special occasions or only visible in the member portal versus the public. And then do you want the organization name to appear? Then you can see I can either allow it to show. So if it's checked off under show means I want it to appear, but I also then have to have it on by default. So having it on by default has it visible automatically. And then I can determine if I want it to be forced. So do I want to force that specific item to always appear if it's filled in on the contact record? So I can determine if I want first and last name to always appear, but I might not want anything else to have to appear because people might not want their email address to appear or their photo to appear. So I might want to disable that on the public and on the member portal, but I want to force first and last name. We definitely want organization name, and then we have the business address. So I could have nothing appear in the member portal and yet force certain items in the public one too. So again, they're 2 different views. So you can determine which you want different information to show. And if you want the ability for people to disable certain information or not. So I will allow the phone to be turned off, but we definitely want to show the business location on the public site. So I'm going to save. And then I'm actually going to come back in and we're going to grab that code. So there is no big difference between creating a member directory versus an organization, other than adjusting a couple of fields and then what you want visible. So just making that clear. The individual for an organization record, that would be the first and last name that would appear, again, is the primary. So just keep a note of that. It's primary contact. Okay, so I'm going to take this code And I'm going to embed it on the website and show you how to do that. And we're going to go into the member portal and see what that looks like. So I already have open just a fun page on our website. So I'm in our WordPress site, and I'm just going to add a container in here. And I'm going to add a code block, or in some cases, it might be HTML block, depending on your site. So I'm just copying and pasting the code in, and then I'm going to publish and preview the page so you can see what it looks like. So here's what it looks like on the public site. So we have form questions that appear here. I have it on the 2-grid, so it's a 2-grid form. When I click on someone's name, it gives me a little bit of a bigger box, which will have more information on them. I can filter based off of responses on the side here. So if I needed to find specific people with a specific niche, you can do that by clicking the filters on the side. These just haven't been filled out, so it's not appearing, so it is filtering correctly. Or you can go back to all, or clear your search and start all over again. As you can see though, every time I clear my search, it gives me new individuals that appear. Again, that's what the random order is doing. So something to consider to do, again, if you're making it, especially if you're making it public, so that everybody gets equal face time. So that's on the website side of things. So now let's go to the member portal. So I'm gonna go up, and I'm a member, so I have access to this. So I'm just gonna go to the member portal at the top here, and I can go to directory, and this is where I can see the member directory that we were just on, as well as the organization. So I have a sponsor directory. Another great use for the organization directory is for your sponsorships, which you can also embed in onto your website. And as you can see, I can get those individuals. Now, one thing you will notice is that I have one item filtered, or 2 items on the side here, where on this one it looks slightly different. So this is a list, whereas this one in the member portal is a drop down. So you can configure that in the form itself. You can determine how it appears, or if you want it filterable in the directory, and I'll show you that in just a minute. So it's one thing I did want to point out, but one thing I want to do is just show you the organization directory first. We're going to go sponsors, and here's the sponsor directory. So for this one, I didn't disable the member type because I wanted to show, are they like a gold, or are they silver, or are they platinum? And in this kind of case, this is when I would allow the member type, because it's what type of sponsor they are. And again, you can just see what it looks like. So icons, when their logo is uploaded, it's automatically added. When they have social media, it's automatically added as well. All right, so let's go back to the CRM, and I'll show you where you can make those adjustments in the form, and then we'll go into our best practices and any additional questions. So if I want to adjust what form questions are filterable, I'm going to go into forms, and I'm going to go to manage, and I'm going to find my directory form. And then I'm going to go down and launch. And so these are my 2 questions. Now, one thing I do always like to mention when I'm in forms is if I delete a form question, it deletes the data. So be careful, don't delete questions you don't want to lose data on. But what I want to do for this one is I can come into setup, and then I can go to properties. And then this is where I can make certain items visible in the public or the member portal directory. So you do have to have them on, checked off, and then on by default for them to appear. You can either make them forced if you want, and you can even allow the question that you asked to either be visible or not visible. You could simply just have the answer, and so only the answers will appear there for you. And then if you want them to be filterable, you can determine if it's going to be a drop down or a list. So that's on that left side, like just over here, Do you want them to be drop down or a list and be able to be filter items? So that's what these questions criteria are asking. Simple as that. Just save. So these are things that you can add as you're going. As soon as you save, it's up to date, and those will apply for you. All right, so that is directories. So we did configurations, showed you how to embed into a website, and then also went through what it looks like on the member portal for a member directory and an organization directory. Again, you can also use them for sponsorships, which is a great idea. So let's go back to our slides and go through a couple of best practices. So, oh yeah, this one's really important. So I didn't cover this, and one thing I'd always like to mention is if you are doing group memberships, there is a function within the membership category that you can allow employees to be visible in your directories. The one thing that you don't want to do is if you're creating only organization directories, you don't want to enable this feature. Otherwise, you might have 5 or 10 of that organization appear in the directories with every single employee. So it depends on how you want to set that up. But 99% of the time, people don't want every single employee to appear in an organization directory. So you want to not allow that by not having that turned on in the membership category. So just something to always be careful about. Next best practice is always attach your directory form to your membership application, or it will not get filled out. It might, but it's very rare that people will take that extra step after applying and paying for their membership to go and complete another form. So just make sure it's attached to the application and renewal process, so it's always being updated on an annual basis. Oh yeah, allow members to edit information that must be available. So don't force all information to be mandatory, especially for public directories. A lot of times people don't want their email or phone number visible, or even their first or last name. They just want the organization name. So making that capability, it saves a lot of headache on your side, as well as empowering the members to choose what they want available or not for the public. Oh yeah, and then this one I mentioned is making sure that you allow random order. Random order is really important, especially for member based, as well as organization. You don't want people to just always get the first organizations or individuals that start with A. So always having equal face time when people go onto the directory. All right. So I always like to end these off with kind of a few helpful items. So in your admin dashboard, so if I just actually go back to Member 365, in the admin dashboard, there is a help center right available for you. So we have instructional videos, knowledge-based articles. You can always submit a ticket. You can always get help with our chat during business hours found at the bottom here. And if you really need to, you can always schedule a call if you're part of our Zoom plan. So if you need extra help, we are here to help you. We want you to be successful. So please reach out to us with any questions. We do love them, and suggestions. That's how we make improvements in the software. So if you are looking to see what updates have happened, you can check out our release notes. And we got a couple new ones coming out within the next couple weeks that are exciting. So stay tuned for those coming out soon. All right, well, thank you very much for joining us today. It's been a pleasure, and I'll see you next time.